Hey, what's up, everybody? BDF 44 coming at you another video. All right, so my last video, I was talking about a lot of different things. And one of the things I was talking about is people who are not consistent, who may have inconsistencies in their personality, may be different in regards to how they are around other people versus how they are in intimate settings, stuff like that. And I was not aware of a story that's going around right now of the politician in New York by the name of Santos, who's being exposed for all various different things, including a bunch of embellishments about his background, about his history, about his heritage, and all the different types of stuff. He had some infidelity things that are being released as well. It's just a whole lot of coming against this man at the same time. And I look at him and I realized that when I said what I said in my previous video, it's almost as if I knew of his story and was trying to give him a pass, or as if his situation may apply to what I was saying. From where I'm sitting, it may, but it's one of those situations where we got to read energy properly. We got to allow for some understanding as it pertains to what we're looking at when we see a person, not just who they present, but what's behind their eyes when they're talking to us. I look at Mr. Santos and I see a sickness in his eyes, a dead, dark look behind his eyes as he's speaking to everyone in all of the little clips that he's allegedly lying in. It's like it's a void behind his eyes. And it's what I talk about. When you read energy, do we read energy properly? Granted, I'll be the first person to say, don't judge a book by its cover. Take the fullness of what you're seeing from behind that person's eyes, as well as what they're doing in it and how they're going about it and everything. Take the fullness of what you see. But in Mr. Santos' case, I gotta admit, man, before anything, I got red flags in regards to everything that was presented to me from him. He presented a certain way, and I look at him and I say, okay, he's the first openly gay politician in New York. I believe that's what that was. And then what flashed in my mind was the first black president. You know what I mean? It's like when the intent is something else, things may slip through the cracks. Now, I don't know if Obama was the greatest president or not. As far as I could tell, during that time, there was a lot of people saying a lot of good things, a lot of people saying a lot of bad things. Some people I trust said a lot of bad things. That's all I can say. But at the end of the day, when you elect somebody for certain specific reasons, it may not necessarily have anything to do with whether or not they're the best candidate. Maybe you just want them because they could help usher in a new day. And I think Santos might be a part of that. You know, we talk about how much this era is about acceptance and allowing identity to be on the forefront, learning and getting to the space where acceptance is broad across all scales in this country. And the LGBTQ community is a big part of that, obviously. Some will say it's an agenda in place. I see evidence of that. I don't look at all that I see and not come to a conclusion that is a part of it. That there are people in place that want a certain level of intent to be placed upon their community, and respect and acceptance and overall embracing. And that's not something I think is bad. But just like any other intention, it can be used the wrong way. It can be turned into something that it's not supposed to be. And you could also have people apply it for blind reasons that are not very smart, and then you end up getting stuff like this. Or even sinister in some cases, where they'll prop somebody up to tear them down, to be very much against the process of what it is that we're talking about. The anti agenda, so to speak, might be in play. And so there's a lot of stuff that can go in place, and it can be in play when you're looking at stuff that doesn't look very good. But one thing I know is that a bunch of people voted for this guy. They believed in him. They listened to what he said. They read what they saw behind him, and they believed he was a leader. And I'm telling you, one glance at that man, and I thought the opposite. No leader there. And how he carried himself and how he spoke, all of that just screamed of, there is something there, and we need to take a look at it. Now we're seeing there's something there. Now, granted, it's easy for me to say that afterward, right? Hindsight is 20/20, and I obviously have that with all this crap coming out. And as I said, I don't know what the agenda is. For all I know, he was propped up. He could be torn down. These could all be, things that are put in place to worsen the environment for his community. But one thing that I can say is he's come out and admitted to a multitude of lies. A bunch of the things that were propped up there for us to see in regards to him was on him. And what came to mind was that young kid, I think he was in Florida, who practiced as a physician without a license and was going around embellishing about what he did and was practicing, his own business in that regard. And they got him and threw him in jail. I heard he just got arrested again for some type of fraud. It's like it's a sickness there. That's a mental health case. That's someone whose life is set up in such a way to where they don't protect themselves from their lies being revealed. That in and of itself speaks to something being awry, whether it be a lack of love for oneself to protect oneself from a certain bad image, or a lack of understanding as to how to keep their lies from being unearthed, or how to want their lies to not be unearthed, how to want to not be exposed. All of that is a sickness. It's a self-loathing or something of that nature in my mind. Maybe in the moment being so nervous that you just tell a bunch of white lies. You know what I mean? Either way, it's a mental illness in my mind. I had a buddy like that who sometimes, in the past, he just couldn't tell the truth. And it wasn't even about whether or not you would be able to prove he was lying or not. He was just a nervous liar. His life just wasn't good enough in his head as a young person. He was a kid, so it wasn't like I hold it against him. He wasn't a grown-up, but for whatever reason, he just couldn't. His reality was not good enough. When expressing it to others, he had to embellish in order to cope with it, or in order to believe it himself. Or maybe he perceived it that way, even though that just wasn't the case. Whatever the case may be, when you ask other people to believe your lies, the math better add up, as we talk about in a lot of situations. And in this case, this individual just had a lot of stuff that was easy to find. It just wasn't. He was telling people stuff that it was easy to unearth. He was telling people lies in the moment, and then like a week later, 2 weeks later, would tweet something completely opposite of that. And it's that kind of thing, you know what I mean? So it's clearly there's a problem there. And you look behind his eye, you look at his eyes, and you can see there's a problem. This man's not well. But this is one of them situations where it's like, look, I'm gonna say something that's not gonna sit well with a lot of people. But there is a great concern in my mind that some of what we see is mental illness in the form of some of these individuals that identify a certain way. Not to say that their identity degrades their mental illness, but I think their mental illness gets overlooked because of their identity display. I think a lot of times not as it pertains to the community, the people that know them and love them, but as it pertains to the wide public that perceives them or receives them on like this. It's like, oh yeah, well, he's a part of the community, so I mean, anything that he's got going on, it's just like, look, it's how he presents, it's just his identity. It's like, no, that dude is ill. And if we're looking at him properly, you can see that in his body language, you can see it in his actions, you can see it in how he speaks to people, what's going on behind his eyes when he talks, looking to the left, looking to the right all the time. I'm telling you, as somebody who's mentally ill myself, I know a sick person when I see one. A good portion of the time, homie was sick, y'all. He ain't well at all. I'd have been able to tell you that in 10 minutes. He ain't well. They propping him up as a leader because he's in the community, but they're not realizing that this dude is completely in a space where he's going to need some support to help him cope with whatever it is he's been dealing with his whole life. And the people around him, to me, it seemed like allowed him to fall into this space. They allowed him to fall into this space. Now, maybe they, you know what I mean? And this is where my mind goes. It's like it's just a whole campaign of people who are allowing this person to get in office. They know that man ain't well. They know he be telling white lies because they around him all the time. They help him get in office. So that environment is what I look at when I see the smear campaign that he's dealing with now. It's like, y'all knew they propped up that. You knew you propped up a sick man, and now you tear him down. Just because the state of New York may not have been wise to that because they were buying into the propaganda. You know what I'm saying? They were buying into what it is that was presented to them, which is a copy and paste campaign routine that they get every couple of years when it's time to prop up a politician. You know what it is, the commercials, pay for you by, message approved by, you know the crap. They bought it. Kiss the babies, all that. They bought it. But see, I remember a movie by the name of Batman Returns. And Batman Returns showed me that even a bad guy who lived in a sewer, a penguin, could become a politician if you market him properly. I always refer to these movies from back then because they always give me a little bit of something to help me understand what it is I'm looking at right now. Gotta show love to Tim Burton because he put that in the movie, or whoever wrote that. That was big for me because it helped me understand exactly what I'm looking at now. Not to say he's the penguin or nothing like that, to disrespect the gentleman, I ain't doing that. But what I'm saying is it ain't much difference when you consider it's Gotham. Whatever you consider the whole situation. At the end of the day, that is an individual who probably has qualities that can lead. Probably has things in his head that could help with what it is that he does. But for whatever reason, his mindset does not allow him to live in his truth while doing those things. And that's really, really strange to me because I know of a world where he goes to get some help and then come back and is able to do the job that he was elected to do. There's also a world where he will never be well enough to do the job. There's also a world where he's going to be canceled right now. Probably we have to pray for him now. Because a mind like that going through what he's going through right now, the next thing ain't good. That's what I do know. It's just one of those situations where, like, what environment are we in? What are we allowing to take place around us? How much is he responsible for himself in regards to the situation when I know he's sick? And I know there are people around him who propped him up are not. I know that. People trying to tear him down, they ain't sick. The publications that are telling us about his whatever he's doing, his wrongdoings, they're not sick. All them people are sane. And the ability to have intuition about knowing that somebody's a little off, maybe not everybody has it, but a few of them do. And they knew it when they put him up there. A few of them had already caught him in a lie because he's a habitual liar. That's shown. They knew he wasn't trustworthy. They put him up there anyway. I'm not the type of stupid, man. I'm always looking at who's creating what. Who's allowing what to happen. Let's segue out of that. Since this is a therapy session, I allow my mind to jump around. And there's another topic I'd like to jump on because it really means a lot and a sense of what it is that we've been talking about. Not in this conversation, but in other therapy sessions, it'll make sense, I believe. So I was sitting here after I finished the therapy session I had made about an hour and a half ago, thinking about some of the stuff that I talked about, thinking about how the various things of passing energy and all that. If you listen to that video, I think it'll make more sense. But like just passing energy toward others and relaying the wrong vibes from whatever came your way. If somebody stepped on your foot, now you're going off and kick somebody's tire or something like that kind of stuff. What that can do overall as you continue to allow that type of energy to be pushed out of you and into the wide world. What it can ultimately do. And one of the things I was thinking about also was like, okay, the power of prayer then. The great antagonist, which is the other side of that. What is the enemy to that energy is goodness, prayer, intentions, free. The word free, like anything that doesn't require someone to give something in return for. It makes up for the indifference in the world. It makes up for the void that's just ever there. And I look at that situations at the idea of what it is to pray. And I say to myself, what is it that would identify the importance of certain people to be prayed for? Like, for example, when we look in different situations, it's like, okay, I want to pray for that person. I want to pray for this person. I want to pray for everybody if I have an intention to pray for everybody. But the significance of what the Lord wants to do in that person's life, I asked myself and I asked the Lord, I guess I prayed and I say, Lord, what's the importance of who needs my prayer more than others? Is there anybody that you would say, I'm praying so much for them, but you don't really have a plan for them like that? And my mind and my heart should probably be pouring it in a different person's direction because they are more so in need of that prayer. Who do I pray for? And the words that came to me was consider the source. In other words, why are you asking me stupid questions? Everybody's important to me. I created everybody equally. You're not more important than anybody, and no one's more important than you. You need to pray for everybody. And then I said, well, Lord, I don't understand this, because you constantly let people, things happen. Not to try to trigger anybody, but things happen. And when it does, it makes you wonder if you're really there, if you really have a plan for everybody, if some of these folks are just destined to go through some, horrible fates or what have you. Why is it that I would apply so much prayer to them if your intention is to just let them deteriorate, if your intention is to not allow them to live a full life or whatever? And then what came to me was, I said, for example, before I go further, what if I want to pray for a random person, random basketball player just came to my team? What if I want to pray for the new player? Like, do you have a plan for him that the hours or whatever I'm pouring into him would make sense to you, God, for me to pray for this particular person? Or should I be praying for Israel and Palestine a little more with that time? And what came to me was this. This is what the word was. It just propped up in my head, no different than the words coming out of my mouth right now. The prayer that you pray to various situations are imprints that you leave from within your spiritual space. That's what came to me. In other words, the answer is, it's not that you're applying prayer to people. You're applying prayers to positions on this earth. And a person represents the position you apply prayer to. It's almost like putting up a mat over a wall or something. That's what the prayer is, in a sense. Because what you're doing is applying your good energy to me and allowing me to touch them through that energy of your intention, which is God speaking to me. It's what I'm hearing in my head. It's like, if you apply prayer to that person, I will be able to keep that energy on them everywhere they go. Every room they're in, every environment they're in, the intention of goodwill on them is something that I can use, God can use, to provide a multitude of good things around those people as they maneuver around the earth. So what you're doing is putting up a spiritual placemat, a spiritual plate over whatever circumstance they happen to be a part of. It's not just that you're applying prayer to them. You're allowing me access to their space. And so I was like, oh, so that's what it is. So if I pray for the random basketball player, you can do good things in his life. You could take his prayers and double down on the good energy that he's praying for the people he loves, and it could relay other things. And essentially, that's exactly what came to me. It's like, you're not wasting your time praying for anybody, because I can do things with them that don't have nothing to do with them. And it's limited to nothing is what came to my mind. That's what the Lord told me. So it's like, you could pray for anybody and feel good that it's not worthless. You could pray for the shoes that you have on your feet, and the Lord could possibly bless someone so that they could wear those shoes, or so that whatever's going on around that area is best. That's what came to mind. It's like, your prayers are not empty. When you apply them to different things, even stuff you don't think you should, there's nothing wrong with going to God with anything, because you can leave your spiritual imprint on whatever. And through that, he can do a multitude of good things. So that's what came to mind, man. Don't refrain your prayer from anyone. Don't think that applying prayer to something that you think may not be useful is something that he ultimately can't do great things with. Because he can most definitely take those prayers and mold an entire environment just from one single prayer. It's what I've been, I guess, brought to understand. So that's what I wanted to bring to the table, man. That's something that came to me right after I made the video about 2 hours ago. And I genuinely did not know what the heck to do with that. I didn't know beforehand what the answer was. It just came to me just like that. I genuinely was wondering if I'm wasting my time praying for certain people. Not as it pertains to wasting my time, but just, would not my prayers go somewhere better? And the answer is no. No, your prayers are exactly what, if you are inspired to pray for someone, that's where he inspired you to place your spiritual imprint. A lot of times we think we manifest these things ourselves. If we believe in a living God, then we understand the fullness of what our lives actually are. You're here between one date and the next. So anything that happens in between that date, the dash, as they say, between your years, is God's will upon your life. Whatever you got going on, if you align with him, if you're not at odds with him, he will allow you to do his will. He'll allow you to have in your heart to be inspired to do certain things specifically that will cater to the goodness around you. Somebody's praying a good prayer, where he's going to make sure you're in the right position to be that prayer for somebody else, to answer that prayer. And I believe, just my belief, there's an antagonist to that that's working just as hard. I believe that. So it's one of those situations where it's just like, if we're not being used by God, it's a good chance we're being used by the other one, the other energy, the enemy, so to speak. And that's what I've come to learn in my own life. And it's one of those things where I don't want to be used by the enemy. I've had enough of that. So when I come on this channel, I hope to try to undo what it is that he's doing wrong. So I speak the way that I speak about the people I speak about. I'm not here to cast any stones at the politician in New York. Like I said, I feel myself to be an ill person. I don't think I got it all together. But I believe he does not have it all together. And I believe there are a lot of people who are throwing stones at this man who knew that beforehand. And whatever he did while he was up there was to be expected by them. And every positioning that they, everything he's in, every position he's in right now is probably by design. So stop exploiting the mentally ill because they happen to identify a certain way and we can prop them up and make them politicians, fool the public with them. Stop playing with our minds. You know how I love to address them people behind the curtain. This is yet another one of them things. This is no different. So I understand it, man. I inherently understand that. Prayer helps me understand stuff like that. They are not low key. They're not low. God knows what they're doing. Even if I definitely don't, he does. And it's one of those situations where it's like, you're not going to be able to get away with that. You may be able to fool the entire world and just place all the blame on that particular person and say he's the worst politician in the world, hold him accountable for every sick thing he ever did. And I say sick, I mean that in a different type of way other than some of the stuff we may say, but everything that may have been a result of what I perceive to be his mental space. We can hold him accountable for that. Say he did this, and how dare he, and why didn't he rationally think a certain way? And it's like, when a person's sick, man, you don't know what's going on in their head, bro. They might be seeing sugar plums in their head while you sitting there thinking they're rationalizing what it is you seeing, man. You have no idea what's going on in their head. So to try to apply a certain level of accountability to certain minds, you're wasting your time. You're wasting your time, man. A lot of people on autopilot. I kid you not. On straight autopilot. You don't even know what type of medication they may be addicted to, how well they function to certain medications. Some people are highly functioning addicts, highly functioning people who have real dependency issues, man. And sometimes that's what it is you're seeing, them trying to cope with their mental illness. Sometimes they got the pills in them, sometimes they don't, type of thing. You got to normalize understanding when people high, man, straight up. And we got to normalize understanding that people get high because they're dealing with something in their head that they need help for. Understand that. Half the time that man was up there lying, he probably had the pill in him. Man, when he was undoing some of them lies, he probably didn't have it in him, or opposite. Whatever the case may be, we got to normalize understanding when a person's ill and normalize the understanding that they are going to self-medicate in some situations, if not most. That's a real thing. And then look at trauma, man. Let's identify, and I'm not going to place anything on that particular person, but let's identify the beforehand looks of a person who's clearly going through crazy amounts of trauma. Can we normalize looking and seeing that? Because a lot of times when I see people who've gone through certain things, they have a certain look in their face that I'm able to identify after the fact most of the time, but it's always that same little crazy wily look in their eye or something like, oh yeah, he has it. Yeah. We see it in mugshots all the time. You can see, yeah, I've seen that look in that person's eye. Yeah, that one's gone. Can we normalize remembering what those looks look like before? You know what I'm saying? And identify those looks in other people's eyes so we don't apply certain responsibilities to these people when we see these looks. And I know that's misguided in some cases. I know that. I do believe that's misguided in some cases. Because you can't judge a book by its cover. Hopefully I'm not leading nobody in the wrong direction. But we have to try to find preventative measures and look for identifiers in regards to certain things, man. Because I'm telling you, when I look at that politician, he screams of all kinds of different stuff that I've seen before in the eyes of people who are not very okay. That's the God's honest truth. He didn't look okay to me at all. And I'm really, really concerned that the people who empowered him don't read energy properly. They don't identify what it is I think I see there off rip. And they would be fooled 100 times over by 100 different people who look just like him. Have the same problem he has, rather. So that's what it is, man. We gotta normalize what the signs are of mental illness, trauma, hidden trauma and all of that. They're identifiers, and we need to get better at seeing them. So I think that's what I have to say, man. I appreciate everybody for allowing me to run my mouth this evening. These therapy sessions have been necessary just for me to get certain things off my chest that I've been there. And also for me to just rationalize certain things that maybe I'm having trouble understanding. But one thing I don't have trouble understanding is my relationship with the higher power at this point, and what it is that ultimately my mission is in regards to helping people see certain things that maybe I don't think they see, or helping people see what others have helped me see. That kind of thing. And so that's where I'm at, man. Sending prayers to that politician, Santos. I don't have no ill will toward you, man. I honestly just think that people put you in, they exploited you, bro. It's my God's honest belief. I think people knew you were as sick as you are, and they had a plan for that. My name is BDF 44. I thank you all for watching. I'm out.